Hello everyone, welcome to the Scumdog's Kennel. I'm your host, Chris Williams, and in today's Cryptid Corner mini-episode, I have a couple of bizarre articles. One, an encounter with a black-eyed woman in a classroom, and another, we have this trickster spirit inhabiting this house. Both articles are certainly intriguing, folks, and we're going to get into them now. Let's read the first article. Black-eyed woman terrifies classroom in adult education center. Chilling confrontation linked to later mysterious death. Let's get into this article and read the entirety of it. At an adult education center, a routine classroom visit became one of the most unforgettable and unsettling encounters the witnesses ever experienced. What began as a simple request for a late tuition payment escalated into a moment of intense fear when a staff member's eyes suddenly turned completely black. The incident left the entire room shaken and raised lingering questions that would only deepen years later when the woman died under strange circumstances. Something far more unusual than a disciplinary interaction may have unfolded that day. Let's read the actual story now, folks. That was a great opener, though, and very, very spooky. Several years ago, I worked at a center for adult education. One day, a woman from the business office who was of Asian origin came to my classroom to collect a past-due tuition payment from a student. The student was quite tall and towered over her. When she asked for the payment, the student jokingly said, "What if I don't pay?" As she slowly looked up at him, her eyes turned jet black. She replied, "I suppose I'll just have to kill you." It felt as though the room temperature dropped by 20 degrees and everyone present became very scared. The student was so upset that he pleaded with her to wait until he got the money. At that moment, her eyes returned to their standard color, and she told him it would be fine for him to pay her the next day, but he must not forget. We were all so shaken by the experience that I had to dismiss the class early. Later, when I reported the incident to the principal, he looked worried and told me to forget about it. He instructed me not to mention any of this to anyone else, as if she were a demon or a malevolent being. I kept the incident to myself. A few years later, after I had left the position, I learned that the woman had died under strange circumstances while visiting her native country, MM. MM's story is bizarre, folks, to say the least. And the fact that so many people saw this entity, you'd have to think that other people would have reported it. So why didn't anyone else say anything about this later on some Reddit post or maybe on, well, some supernatural show, folks? So very strange. But there's also some commentary and notes that go along with this story, folks. So let's read these as well now. This report aligns strongly with a global pattern of black-eyed human encounters in which individuals momentarily display completely black scalia along with a sudden emotional shifts and environmental changes. The sharp temperature drop described by the witness is consistent with many accounts of hostile entities or altered energetic states. The immediate fear response experienced by everyone in the room mirrors the visceral dread often reported in black-eyed person encounters. The shift back to standard eye color suggests a transient transformation rather than a stable physiological trait, supporting the theories involving possession, overshadowing, or a temporary breach between dimensional states. The principal's reaction is particularly noteworthy. His insistence on silence implies prior knowledge or incidents he did not want documented. The woman's later death under unusual circumstances may be unrelated, yet such follow-up details frequently appear in cases where an individual is believed to harbor an attachment, entity influence, or a non-human consciousness operating through them. Although speculative, her behavior fits both the ultra-terrestrial overshadowing hypothesis and the rare but documented host moment phenomena in which a human appears to channel an intrusive intelligence for a moment. Indeed, it seems like this woman was possessed by something, folks, at least with the physical transformation of the eyes. But that could also be due to the fact that maybe she revealed her alien nature. Maybe she was some sort of alien-human hybrid, folks. Now, it's been said that the government knows about and works with these alien beings, folks. Perhaps the principal knew this woman wasn't entirely human and was given the task by the government to give her a job so she can learn to interact with humans, perhaps. But when she got angry at the student, her alien nature was revealed to the class. Maybe that explains both why she disappeared and basically said that she was perhaps dead, folks, and why the principal was so nervous about the whole thing. But either way, truly interesting. But let's move on to the next article. Michigan farmhouse trickster entity, mischievous spirit known as Grandpa Henry. Let's read about this entity, folks, who basically the witnesses call Grandpa Henry, and hear about maybe both the terrifying and maybe the more whimsical side of the supernatural question. A quiet rural farmhouse east of Lansing, Michigan, became the center of a series of unnerving yet strangely playful incidents involving a retired couple. What began as missing kitchenware soon escalated into an intelligent pattern of disappearance and return. The story has become one of the region's most endearing examples of a household trickster spirit, yet the true nature of the entity who called himself Grandpa Henry remains an open question. Hi, Lon. My parents lived in an old farmhouse in a small town east of Lansing, Michigan. They rented the house from some friends of my dad's who told them that the wife's parents had lived there and were both gone. Soon after my parents moved in, all the lids to my mom's pots and pans disappeared from the cupboard where they were stored. Keep in mind that it was just my older parents living there. No one else was around. After searching everywhere for the lids, my mom got upset and told my dad that she was going to buy new ones the next day. However, when she walked in the door with her new lids, she found all her original lids lying on the kitchen table. She was furious. We informed the landlord about what had happened, and she said, "Sounds like Grandpa Henry. He loves a good joke." That's quite the response, isn't it, folks, to learn that maybe your house is haunted and the name of the entity seems to be Grandpa Henry. That is quite the mind blower, I would say, folks, if you heard that after all the weird incidents you were basically just made privy to, folks. Either way, let's continue with the article. A few months later, my mom's favorite earrings went missing. Once again, she looked everywhere for them. One day, after making the bed, she said out loud, "Grandpa Henry, it's not funny. Give them back." A few hours later, when she returned to the bedroom, she found her earrings laying on her pillow. She was pretty freaked out after that. On another occasion, my dad was the town's chief of police who came home for lunch and set his cruiser keys down in the kitchen. When he was ready to leave, he couldn't find them anywhere. My mom, my daughter, and he looked all over the house and the yard. Finally, he announced that he was going to radio in for a spare set of keys. At that moment, my mom and daughter turned from the back door and spotted his keys right in the middle of the table. All three of them swore they had looked there several times before. These are just a few of the pranks that Grandpa Henry pulled on us while my parents lived in that house. Thanks for taking the time to read our story. P.S. Well, P.S.'s story is indeed strange, folks, and sounds like this entity was just having a little fun with these people. But could it be that they just made mistakes? Maybe due to some, quirk, the daughter and the mother didn't see the car keys for the police cruiser on the kitchen table, folks. As I said, maybe it was some sort of quirk or something, but I have my doubt that that's what happened here, folks. So unless the whole family was just crazy with hysteria, which I kind of doubt from the way the story was described, folks, they seemed rather calm, I think there was something more going on. But let's read this commentary notes on this case, and then we can take a bit more in about what happened. This case displays classic hallmarks of a benign yet highly active household spirit commonly known in folklore as a trickster entity. The repeated removal and return of objects is consistent with activity that demonstrates intention rather than random bursts of energy. The emotional tone of the encounters suggests an intelligence that responded directly to verbal communication, primarily when the mother firmly addressed the entity by name. Similar activity clusters are documented throughout the Midwest involving deceased family members who linger in old farmhouses and exhibit playful rather than aggressive behavior. The Lansing region has a history of residual hauntings and conscious presences that interact with long-term residents, which aligns with the landlord's immediate identification of the spirit as Grandpa Henry. This may indicate a multi-witness pattern that predates the family's tendency. Indeed, maybe it does, folks. Perhaps this entity has been on this land for decades or even maybe centuries. That could be the truth, folks. Either way, both accounts exhibit bizarre entities, folks, that we just don't know much about. Until we do, folks, we can only just guess at their intentions. Either way, we're at the end, so please go subscribe to my YouTube channel. Read comics, they're bad for you. You can use the YouTube link down below in the descriptions of the chat to go subscribe to me. Hit that like button for me. Make sure you're still subscribed. Leave some comments down below. Hit that bell for notifications. Make sure to part of the bell. That'll give you all future notifications, and please share this video out. I'm Chris Williams from the Scumdogs Kennel. Thank you all for joining me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another great video, so be sure to come back again then. Till next time, folks, I'll see you all again soon.